It began the way quiet betrayals always do, softly. A clink of glass. A ripple of laughter that didn't reach the eyes. Sunday evening. Tacoma, Washington, the Hayes family dining room glowed under a hanging light, warm enough to fool anyone into thinking this was love. Roast chicken. Mashed potatoes. Wine sweating against crystal glasses. Madison Hayes sat at the far end of the table, fork poised midair, the faint hum of the dishwasher in the background. Then came the voice, her sister's, bright, polished, perfectly cruel. "Where's your husband and kids, Maddie?" The question floated out like perfume, sweet and sharp. A beat of silence. "Oh, right. You don't have any." The laughter that followed wasn't loud, just surgical. Her parents joined in, small polite chuckles, as if to say, "It's just a joke, don't take it so seriously." But Madison felt something in her chest twist. That laughter didn't sound like family, it sounded like recognition of an old truth. She was the odd one out, the reliable one, the one who'd never been allowed to break. She forced a smile. For years she'd smiled through worse. Then she set her spoon down. The sound was quiet but final. "Where's your money, Chloe?" She said it with a calm that made the air go still. "Oh right," she added, tilting her head. "I've been supporting you, until today." For a moment, no one breathed. Her mother's fork froze halfway to her mouth, her father's jaw worked as if chewing on unspoken disapproval, and Chloe, ever the actress, blinked, stunned that her script had been interrupted. That silence, that heavy, living silence, didn't end that night. It started everything that came after. Her name was Madison Hayes, 32 years old. UX researcher. Seattle's Capitol Hill. From the outside, she was a portrait of balance, soft sweaters. Neat apartment. Coffee before sunrise. Her colleagues liked her. Her landlord adored her punctuality. She looked like someone who'd figured it out. But behind that steadiness was a truth she never admitted aloud. Half her paycheck disappeared before she could use it, not to debt. Not to rent. To family. Her mother, Evelyn, once a nurse until her heart surgery forced her into early retirement. Her father, Robert, an economics lecturer turned consultant, which was another word for waiting for the phone to ring. And Chloe, the golden child, 4 years younger, bright, adored, eternally on the verge of becoming someone important. She called herself a fashion influencer. Madison called her the reason my savings account never grows. Every text began the same. "Hey, sis, can you help me just this once? Promise I'll pay you back when the next brand deal hits." But there was never a next brand deal, only more apologies, more promises, more reasons why this time was different. And Madison, ever the peacemaker, believed it, because that's what good daughters do, right? They keep the house from foreclosure, they pay for the car that keeps breaking down, they fill the fridge so their parents won't have to ask, they do it quietly, because asking for gratitude would make them seem petty. For 7 years, she told herself that love looked like sacrifice, that if she just kept giving, one day they'd see her for who she really was, not the backup plan, but the reason everything still worked. Every Sunday, she made the same drive south. 1 hour from Capitol Hill to Tacoma. 1 hour of rehearsed smiles. Her car smelled like coffee and rain, Seattle's twin perfumes. By the time she reached her parents' driveway, her mask was always in place. Family dinner was tradition, her mother liked to say. It kept them close, connected, but to Madison, it was more like a performance, everyone playing a part they'd long since memorized. Evelyn, the matriarch, always fussed about the food, fluttering around the kitchen like worry personified. Robert held court at the head of the table, talking about economic trends he no longer participated in. Chloe arrived late, perfume first, phone in hand, ready to fill the silence with herself. And Madison, she brought the wine. Always the same kind. Always the same role. The walls were lined with photos, smiling moments frozen in amber. Chloe at 17, crowned at her high school pageant, Robert shaking hands with someone vaguely important, Evelyn in her nurse's uniform, eyes bright with youth, and Madison, always there, but never centered, half cropped out. Half remembered. She'd noticed it once, years ago, and laughed it off. Now, those edges felt like prophecy. Dinner followed a script. They talked about Chloe's next collab, Robert's client, Evelyn's doctor's orders. When the meal ended, Robert would pat her shoulder the way he did with his students. "Thanks for keeping things steady, Maddie," he'd say. As if stability were a gift only she could provide. Driving home, she'd grip the steering wheel so tight her knuckles turned white. Sometimes she told herself, "This is just family, messy, needy, flawed. Other nights, the thought turned sharper, they don't love you. They depend on you. She never said it aloud, because once spoken, truth demands action. That particular Sunday began like all the others, until it didn't. From the moment she walked in, she could feel it, the air thick. The warmth forced, even the candles flickered wrong. The table gleamed with care. Roast chicken in the center, wine glasses catching amber light, everything perfect, and utterly hollow. Evelyn was mid-story, gushing about Chloe's invitation to some designer's launch party in downtown Seattle. Robert nodded proudly, his tone filled with academic approval. Great exposure, he said. Networking matters more than money sometimes. Madison smiled because that's what she was supposed to do, but pride didn't erase the $2,300 transfer that had paid for Chloe's rent the week before. Exposure didn't pay off credit cards. Chloe scrolled through her phone as she spoke, voice casual and cruel. You should come to one of those events, Maddie. Maybe you'd finally meet someone. She looked up, grin gleaming under the chandelier. Where's your husband and kids, anyway? Oh right, a pause, sharp as glass. You don't have any. The laughter came, soft, short, stabbing, her mother's giggle, high and brittle, her father's chuckle, polite but complicit. Even the sound of their amusement felt rehearsed. The room blurred around her, smell of garlic, clink of forks, tick of the wall clock. Madison's chest tightened, heat crawling up her neck. For years she'd endured the comments, about her singlehood, her career, her lack of a real life. She'd bitten her tongue, smiled through insults, paid for everything anyway, but something inside her, small, quiet, tired, finally woke up. She set her spoon down, the porcelain rang softly against the plate. Where's your money, Chloe? She asked, her voice steady, low, and cold. Oh right. I've been supporting you until today. Oh right. I've been supporting you until today. The silence hit like a dropped curtain. Evelyn's fork froze midair. Robert's eyes widened, a flicker of shock crossing his face. Chloe's smirk faltered. Excuse me, she said, voice high, uncertain. You heard me, Madison replied. I'm done. The only sound was the clock ticking, steady, relentless, tick. Tick. Tick, her heartbeat matched it. It wasn't peace, it was rupture, and once things break, they rarely go back. The drive home was wordless. Streetlights streaked across the windshield, white ribbons over rain-slick roads. Her reflection in the glass looked unfamiliar, calm but hollow-eyed, like someone halfway through molting her old skin. She didn't cry. Didn't replay the scene. Didn't regret the words. For the first time, she felt something like relief, jagged but real. At her apartment, she kicked off her shoes and sat at her desk. The stack of envelopes waited, bills, statements, receipts, her past in paper form. She'd never had the courage to add them up. Now, she did. $84,000.7 years, her 20s, gone, not to adventure or travel or a home of her own, but to keep others comfortable. The irony was bitter. She worked in fintech, building apps to help people manage their money, yet she'd been bleeding herself dry in silence. She opened her laptop, fingers trembling only slightly. Recurring transfers, mortgage, Tacoma. Evelyn medication. Chloe rent, each one a vein feeding someone else's piece. Her cursor hovered over the toggle, cancel recurring transfer. She clicked yes. The confirmation ping was soft, almost holy. She exhaled, deep and slow. For the first time in years, her breath didn't hurt. Morning, Seattle drizzle. The city outside her window blurred into watercolor grays. Her phone buzzed before the coffee cooled. Mom, sweetheart, the payment didn't go through. Maybe a bank error. Dad, you forgot the house transfer. Please check. Chloe, hey, sis, can you Venmo me? Rent's due. Love you. She read each one slowly, then turned the phone face down. Her apartment hummed in quiet rebellion. By evening, the calls began, first Evelyn, voice trembling between guilt and manipulation, then Robert, his tone rising with authority he no longer owned, finally Chloe, half pleading, half accusing. By week's end, desperation had become anger. You can't do this to us. You owe us after everything we've done. You're being dramatic, Madison. She saved every message. Every timestamp. Every voicemail, not out of vengeance, not yet, but because something deep in her gut told her, this story isn't over. Then, on Friday, came the text, come home Sunday. We need to talk. No greeting. No question. Just an order, the kind they'd always used, assuming her obedience. She stared at it until the phone dimmed, then whispered, "Fine." Her voice didn't shake this time. "If this is war," she said softly, "I'm done pretending I don't know how to fight." Sunday, cold, gray, Tacoma under a sky heavy with unshed rain. She drove in silence, no music, no nervous rehearsing, just the steady rhythm of tires over asphalt and the sound of her own pulse. For once, she wasn't bracing for guilt, she was bracing for truth. The house stood exactly as she remembered, peeling paint, flickering porch light, curtains that never changed. From the outside, nothing had shifted. Inside, everything had. Evelyn moved briskly around the table, setting napkins with trembling hands. Robert sat at the head, posture rigid, fingers laced together like a man about to deliver a lecture. Chloe leaned on the counter, scrolling through her phone, armor in motion. Madison hung her coat slowly, folded it over a chair. The silence stretched until Evelyn broke it. "Madison," she began, voice taut. "We can't live like this. The mortgage, the bills, you know how hard it's been for us." Madison nodded once. "I know," she said quietly. "I've known for 7 years." Robert's tone hardened. "Don't start. This family depends on you. You've always helped. Why stop now?" She looked at him, not with anger, but something worse, clarity. "Because it's not help if it's expected. That's not generosity, Dad. That's obligation." Evelyn flinched. "You're being cruel." Madison's voice didn't rise. "No. I'm being honest." Chloe laughed softly, still scrolling. "Wow. Someone found her backbone. Congratulations, sis." Madison turned her gaze toward her sister. "You mock me for not having a husband or kids, but you've lived off me like I'm your second parent." "Excuse me?" The phone lowered. A flush crept up Chloe's neck. Evelyn jumped in, frantic. "Enough. Both of you." Madison's reply came like steel and silk. "That's the problem, Mom. You never expected her to grow up." Robert slammed his hand on the table, the sound sharp as breaking wood. "Watch your tone. We're your parents. Show some respect." Madison didn't move. Didn't blink. "Respect," she said slowly, "is earned. Not demanded." The room fell still, the air heavy enough to break. For a long moment, no one spoke. The old wall clock kept time for them, each tick landing like a verdict. Robert's glare softened first. Maybe he thought silence was surrender, but Madison wasn't folding this time. She inhaled, slow, unsteady. The room smelled of stale coffee and polished wood, the scent of years spent pretending. "I'm not your enemy," she said quietly. Evelyn's eyes flicked up, watery, pleading. "Then stop acting like one." Madison almost laughed. "You forged me into this. You just don't like what you created." Chloe muttered something under her breath, but Madison ignored it. Her heart wasn't racing anymore. It was steady, mechanical, that scared her parents more than shouting ever could. Robert pushed back his chair. "Enough. Sit down." She didn't. No, the word hung between them, foreign and electric. He froze. Evelyn's hands clenched a napkin like a rosary. Madison stepped closer, her voice lowering to a whisper meant only for them. "Do you know what it feels like to wake up every day terrified of a phone notification, to wonder which one of you needs saving next?" No one answered. The truth didn't need a reply. She reached into her bag and placed a slim folder on the table. The sound of paper meeting would echo through the room. "What's that?" her father asked, though he already knew. "Receipts," Madison said. "Every transfer, every payment. 7 years of proof." Chloe scoffed. "You're keeping score now?" "No," Madison said. "I'm keeping boundaries." She opened the folder, page after page of wire transfers, bank logs, statements. The color drained from Robert's face. Evelyn whispered, "Madison, this isn't necessary." "It is," she said softly. "Because I'm done explaining what you refuse to see." Her finger tapped a highlighted section. "Dad's mortgage, I covered $28,000. Mom's medication, $9,600. Chloe's rent, $18 for 100. And then, this. She slid forward a bank notice stamped with his signature. Robert's brow furrowed. What's that supposed to be? The home equity loan, she said, the one taken out using my name. The silence sharpened. Evelyn blinked fast, confusion melting into dread. Robert? He straightened, defensive instinct kicking in. It's just paperwork. The bank must've. Madison cut him off. The bank didn't make a mistake. They called me after a flagged document. She pulled out another page, an official seal in blue, forgery. Identity theft. Elder fraud category, depending on intent. Robert's mouth opened, closed. Chloe whispered, "You called the bank?" "I didn't just call," Madison replied. "I hired a lawyer." The name came out clean, surgical. Rachel Tran. The napkin slipped from Evelyn's hand. "You brought in an outsider to turn against your own family?" Madison's voice dropped lower. "No. You turned against me the moment you used me like a wallet." Her father leaned forward, whisper yell. "You think you can threaten us?" "Not a threat," she said. "A timeline." She pushed one final page forward, typed, dated, stamped, "You have 30 days to remove my name from every account and repay what you owed. If you don't, Rachel will file." The sound that followed wasn't human, a mixture of gasp, sob, disbelief. The clock ticked on, impartial. Evelyn's voice broke first. "We only did it to protect the house." "You know your father's been," Madison cut her off. "You didn't think I'd find out. You counted on that." Robert's jaw tightened. "We're your parents." "And I was your insurance policy," she said. "Not anymore." Chloe's mascara shimmered under the light as her eyes filled. "You're ruining us." "No," Madison said. "I'm saving myself." She gathered the folder, slid it into her bag, and turned toward the door. Behind her, Evelyn's voice cracked like old glass. "Please, we can fix this together." Madison paused. "I spent 7 years fixing things you broke. This time, you'll fix it yourselves." Outside, the sky was steel gray. She walked to her car without looking back. Through the window she saw them, her father pacing, her mother crying, her sister frozen. It looked almost like a tableau of guilt. For once, she didn't feel sorry. She felt free. That night, Madison sat by the window of her apartment, city lights glittering over the sound. Her reflection stared back, pale, calm, older. She opened her laptop again, this time to an email from Rachel. Subject: Case update, verification complete. Madison, we received confirmation from the bank. The documents were forged under your digital signature. You are cleared of liability. I've attached formal notice. Next steps are optional enforcement or closure. R. She exhaled, long and trembling. It was over, at least legally. Emotionally, she wasn't sure. Her hands hovered above the keyboard, then typed back, "Close it," because what she wanted now wasn't punishment, it was peace. She poured herself a glass of red wine, the same brand her family used to drink on Sundays, and whispered to no one, to endings. To beginnings. The glass clinked against the window pane. For a second, she almost smiled. Days blurred into routine. She went to work, answered emails, smiled through meetings. Her coworkers noticed a change, softer shoulders, quieter eyes. Someone joked, "You finally look like you slept." She had, for the first time in years. Then, one evening, scrolling through property listings, a photo stopped her cold. House for sale, Tacoma/3-bed 2-bath. The picture showed a familiar porch, peeling paint, the same flickering light, her family home. She zoomed in until the pixels broke apart. In one shot, she could still see the dining room window, the place where everything had fallen apart. A red tag blinked at the bottom, for sale. She didn't feel victory, just inevitability. When you build a life on someone else's sacrifices, collapse is only a matter of time. Her phone buzzed again, a message from Rachel. Bank confirmed loan removal complete. You're in the clear. If they default on repayment, it won't touch your record. Relief wasn't a flood, it was a whisper. She typed back a simple thank you. The following weekend, a new text arrived. Mom, one last dinner before we leave the house. Please come. Madison stared at it for a long while. Part of her wanted to delete it, another part, the quieter, braver part, knew she had to go, not for them. For closure. Sunday again, Tacoma, stripped bare this time, boxes stacked where laughter used to live, the smell of dust replacing roast chicken, the walls echoed every word they'd ever said. Robert looked older, his voice quieter when he greeted her. Evelyn's eyes were red but steady. Chloe sat with her phone face down for once. They ate mostly in silence. No jokes. No gossip. Just the scrape of cutlery. After dinner, Madison set down her glass. I'm not cutting you out of my life, she said softly, but I won't be your safety net anymore. If you fall, you get back up on your own. No one argued. For the first time, silence didn't feel like war, it felt like acceptance. When she stood to leave, Evelyn reached out, fingers trembling, not to pull her back, just to touch her sleeve. Thank you for coming, she whispered. Madison nodded. Goodbye, Mom. At the doorway she looked back once more. The house seemed smaller, almost fragile. Then she stepped outside into the cold. The wind coming off Puget Sound stung her cheeks, but it was clean, honest, alive. Driving north, she rolled down the window, let the air rush through her hair, and thought of everything she'd finally made room for, her own savings, her own peace, her own future. Weeks passed. She took a promotion at work, enrolled in a night course, started hiking again. Each small act felt like reclaiming a piece of herself. Sometimes, late at night, she'd glance at the empty chair across from her table. No guilt. No noise. Just space, and she'd smile, not because she was happy but because she was finally unafraid of being alone. Then came a letter, handwritten, unfamiliar handwriting. Inside, a single line, I'm sorry. No signature, just a Tacoma postmark. Madison folded it neatly, set it inside the same folder that once held her receipts, and closed it for good. She didn't need to reply. Forgiveness, she realized, wasn't a transaction, it was release. She stood by her window again, watching the city shimmer under drizzle, her voice barely a whisper. Love doesn't drain you. It doesn't demand your peace as proof. Outside, somewhere far below, a car horn blared and the city kept breathing. Madison turned off the light and for the first time, the darkness felt like home. Autumn came early that year. Seattle's skies dimmed sooner, and the air carried the faint scent of cedar and change. On most evenings Madison walked home from work instead of driving, letting the rhythm of her footsteps replace the noise that used to live in her head. It was strange how silence could feel like both an ending and a beginning. She'd spent 32 years learning to anticipate everyone else's storms. Now she was learning how to stand still in her own calm. At first, the quiet unnerved her. She would come home, drop her keys in the bowl by the door, and wait for the familiar vibration of a text, the next emergency, the next just this once. But nothing came. The absence of need felt like withdrawal. Her hands, once trained to calculate transfers and due dates, didn't know what to hold. So she began holding her mornings, stretching them longer, coffee at the window. Journaling without agenda. A kind of rebuilding that had nothing to do with money. On one of those quiet evenings she found herself in a bookstore near Pike Place, rows of paperbacks, the smell of ink and dust. A woman at the counter smiled. You look like someone who needs a good story. Madison smiled back. Maybe one about forgiveness. The woman handed her a novel, The Art of Letting Go. The title felt too on the nose, but she bought it anyway. That night she read only the first line. Some debts can't be repaid, they can only be released. She closed the book, staring at the ceiling. For years she had equated release with loss, but maybe it was freedom wearing a disguise. 3 weeks later she received an email from her lawyer, Rachel Tran, just checking in. Everything's been officially closed. Your name's protected indefinitely. Madison typed back, thank you for helping me protect myself. Rachel replied within minutes, you did that part on your own. She stared at those words for a long time. It was such a simple sentence, yet it cracked open something she hadn't realized she'd been craving. Acknowledgement, not the hollow, we're proud of you, her father used to say, but real recognition that survival itself had value. That night she walked to Cary Park, the skyline stretched before her, the Space Needle glowing against rain clouds. She whispered, you did that part on your own. And for the first time, she believed it. But peace, like all delicate things, tested her resolve. One morning in late October, a knock echoed through her apartment. When she opened the door, Chloe stood there, different, thinner, eyes shadowed, clutching a small envelope. Madison's breath hitched. "Chloe?" Her sister smiled, brittle. "Hey! Can I come in?" They hadn't seen each other in nearly 2 months. Inside, the air felt thick with history. Chloe set the envelope on the table. "It's not what you think. It's not money. It's papers. Dad asked me to give them to you." Madison hesitated, then opened it. Inside was a copy of the loan release, signed by both parents, repayment complete, lien removed. A handwritten note at the bottom in her father's careful script, "You were right. Respect should be earned. We're starting over, wherever that leads." Her throat tightened. Chloe's eyes glistened. "He's been different since you left. Mom too. They're selling the house, moving to Idaho. Cheaper, quieter. I think they're trying." Madison nodded, unsure what to say. Chloe looked around the apartment, simple, warm, full of plants. "You really did it," she whispered. "You built a life." Madison smiled faintly. "One step at a time." For a moment, the sisters just breathed. No blame. No tally. Just two women standing on opposite sides of the same wound, finally seeing how it had shaped them. Before leaving, Chloe paused at the door. "Do you hate me?" Madison shook her head. "No. I just finally stopped mistaking enabling for love." Chloe nodded, tears catching the light. "I'm sorry." "I know," Madison said softly. "Me too." When the door closed, Madison leaned against it and let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. Forgiveness, she realized, wasn't loud. It arrived like dusk, slowly, gently, uninvited but welcome. Days flowed easier after that. Work no longer felt like escape but expression. Her promotion allowed her to lead a small design team, mentoring interns who reminded her of herself, eager to please, afraid to disappoint. She taught them the one lesson she had learned too late: don't let gratitude trap you. She told them, if someone calls you indispensable, check whether they mean irreplaceable or exploitable. Her words surprised even her. They nodded, and she felt something like purpose return. By November, she had saved enough for a solo trip, her first vacation in years. She chose Mendocino, a quiet coastal town in Northern California, ocean cliffs, fog that rolled like memory. Each morning she walked barefoot along the shoreline, letting the waves erase her footprints as quickly as she made them. On the third day she sat watching the water and finally opened the book from Pike Place. Halfway through, a sentence caught her. Healing isn't the absence of pain, it's the presence of perspective. She whispered it aloud, tasting the truth of it. She thought of her parents, somewhere unpacking in Idaho. Of Chloe, trying to stand on her own, and of herself, not defined by what she gave, but by what she finally kept. When she returned to Seattle, winter had crept in. The city lights shimmered against wet pavement, cafes steamed up with breath and laughter. Madison felt, for the first time, like part of the living world again, not its silent donor. At her apartment door, a small package waited. Inside, a framed photo, her family, years ago, at some picnic she barely remembered, and a note, for your new beginning. Love, Mom. She hung it by the window, not as forgiveness, but as closure. The people in the picture were ghosts now, versions of themselves before debt and resentment rewrote their lines. Every time she passed it, she felt both ache and peace, proof that those two could coexist. One Friday evening, Madison joined a friend from work for dinner. A new Italian place downtown. They talked about travel, books, the absurdity of adult life. At one point, her friend laughed and said, "You always seem so composed. Like nothing rattles you." Madison smiled. "Oh, I rattle. I've just learned not to shake apart." Later that night, walking home through the drizzle, she realized how far she'd come from the woman who once measured her worth by how much she could give away. Now, she measured it by what she refused to lose. She passed a family inside a cafe, parents, 2 kids, laughter fogging the glass. It no longer stung. Love wasn't a prize she'd failed to win, it was a choice she finally made for herself. December arrived with its soft cruelty. Holidays, the first one she'd spend alone. Her colleagues invited her to gatherings. She declined politely. Instead, she decorated her apartment with quiet grace, a small tree, white lights, no excess. On Christmas Eve she cooked for one, poured wine, and raised her glass. To peace, she said aloud. And to anyone still earning theirs. The toast echoed gently. She thought of her younger self, the one who'd driven home from Tacoma gripping the steering wheel, trying not to cry. She wished she could reach back through time and whisper, "You're allowed to stop saving them. You deserve saving too." Outside, faint fireworks flickered over the sound. Inside, she smiled. A week into the new year, Madison visited an art exhibit downtown. Boundaries, the art of saying no. Irony, she thought, but the pieces were breathtaking. Sculptures made from broken locks, photographs of open hands. One quote on the wall read, "Sometimes the most loving word in the world is no." She stood there for a long time, the words wrapping around her like a blanket. When she left, she passed a street musician playing an old cello under a bridge. The melody was haunting, almost familiar. She dropped a few dollars into the case, and the man looked up, eyes crinkled. "Thank you." She smiled. "No, thank you." Because for once, giving felt like choice, not obligation. By spring, she had repainted her apartment, soft gray with golden light. New beginnings don't always look like fireworks, sometimes they look like calm spaces. She hosted her first dinner, 3 coworkers, simple pasta, laughter that didn't hurt. At one point someone spilled wine and apologized. Madison waved it off. "It's just a stain," she said. "I've survived worse." They laughed, and she realized it was true. Months later, scrolling social media late at night, she stumbled upon Chloe's new post. A photo of a modest boutique, captioned, "First day open." Scared but grateful. Madison's heart swelled, not with pride or pity, but with peace. She typed a single comment, "Proud of you." No emoji. No subtext. Just truth. Within minutes, a heart appeared beside it. She closed the app and exhaled. Sometimes love didn't need repair, it just needed distance to breathe. Summer again. 1 year since that dinner, the night laughter turned into liberation. Madison stood on her balcony, watching the sunset drip orange into Puget Sound. She thought about everything she'd lost, and everything she'd finally gained. The numbers balanced differently now. Her voice was soft but certain, "I'm not the joke anymore." The wind carried it away, gentle and sure. She went inside, sat at her desk, and began to write. Not a diary, not a budget, but a story. Her story. She wrote it the way she wished someone had told it to her, not as tragedy, but as proof of survival. "If you've ever been the one holding your family together while they tore you apart," she typed, "know this, saying no isn't cruelty. It's self-respect." She paused, fingers hovering, then added, "And sometimes, the silence that follows is the sound of your life finally beginning." She clicked save. Outside, the city hummed, cars, laughter, music drifting from open windows. For the first time, she didn't feel outside of it. She was part of the noise, part of the stillness, part of something whole. Madison poured herself another glass of wine and lifted it toward the night. "To the ones who finally stopped apologizing for choosing themselves," she whispered. And somewhere, in a quiet house miles away, a woman named Evelyn looked at an old photograph of her daughters and smiled through tears, whispering the same words. If you've listened this far, maybe you've carried a similar weight, the guilt of saying no, the ache of choosing peace over approval. Maybe tonight you finally understand what Madison did. That love is not the same as obedience, that kindness is not debt, and that the family you save might one day include yourself. So tell me, where are you listening from, and what line did you have to draw before you could finally breathe?